Hello students! Welcome to academic year 2020 to 2021. I am pretty sure that you have already taken your practical research one last year and was able to learn a lot about qualitative research. Am I right, students? So before I introduce to you our lesson for today, allow me to congratulate you first for successfully finishing your grade 11 subjects. Congratulations, students! A round of applause. Alright, today's lesson is Introduction to Research. That was quick, class, right? Make sure to grab your notebook and pen as I begin with the discussion. So, what are your ideas about research? Any ideas? Alright, before that, are your notebook and pen ready? Make sure to grab your notebook and pen. Alright, great. Write your ideas on your notebook. Any ideas about research? I'll give you 5 seconds. Are you writing? I hope you are. Alright, that's great. Let's move on. But before everything else, let us all focus our eyes and minds to today's objectives. Our first objective is define the meaning of research and inquiry. Second objective, exhibit appreciation towards the importance of research. And third, point out the applicability of inquiry and research to a given situation. Are you ready, students? Of course you are. All right. So this is the definition of research. Research comes from the Middle French word rechercher, which means the act of searching closely. The prefix re means again, and the word search means to look for. More so, students, developments in the society that every citizen come to utilize are all products of research. Research also follows a step-by-step process of investigation that uses a standardized approach in answering questions or solving problems. Meaning to say, research follows a procedure to give out solutions to a certain dilemma. More so, research is also the process of looking for information once again. Basically, research is important to answer our queries, or in layman's term, questions. Class, can you look at your surroundings? You can see a lot of innovative designs and products that make our lives easier, right? Kindly mention at least 3, class. Try to look at your surroundings, come on, and mention at least 3. Alright, those are products of research. So, let's move on to the characteristics of research. It says here, research is scientific, experimental, and it follows an inductive manner of thinking. When we say inductive manner of thinking, it starts from specific to general ideas that begin from lower order thinking strategies to higher order thinking strategies. It begins from identifying the topic or problem. Next is gathering data, then making theories, then hypotheses, then analyzing data, and the last one is drawing conclusions. Also, let us remember that the information that we gather in research comes from other resources of data. For example, people, books, artworks, and of course from us. Hence, it is only rightful for the researchers to acknowledge the owners of all the resources as not to be charged of plagiarism. Because acknowledging the author is also a way of establishing the reliability and validity of the data included in your research paper. Let's move on to the first characteristic of research, accuracy, meaning Research must provide correct or accurate data, which should be honestly and appropriately documented. It is expected in a research paper class to have an appropriate documentation of the data in the footnotes, notes, and bibliographical entries. Objectiveness. This must present the evidence, not mere assumptions resulting from theories, generalizations, projections, or conclusions. The definition of this characteristic of research speaks for itself, class. Data included in research papers must always be factual. Alright? Timeliness. This has to work on a topic that is original, modern, and important to society today. Research must always contribute to the present need of the society. Alright, class, can you think of a specific dilemma that our society needs right now? Kindly write them down on your notebook as it will help you as you start brainstorming for your research topic. Have you written some already, class? Alright, that's great. Next, relevance. Its topic must be instrumental in improving society or in solving problems affecting the lives of people in a community. As I have mentioned earlier, class, developments in our society are products of research. Meaning to say, research has to solve a problem in the community. It must be something that would be of good help for everyone's sake. Another characteristic of research is its clarity. Research must succeed in expressing its central point or discoveries by using simple, direct, concise, and correct language. Remember, class, that research does not use flowery words. Instead, it utilizes appropriate language for a specific field with certain jargons. Understand? Great! One of the characteristics of research is it's systematic. When we say systematic, it must take place in an organized or orderly manner. Research does not skip a step in obtaining an intervention to the problem, class. Instead, remember this, it follows a step-by-step procedure in obtaining such data. Clear? Great! Questions about characteristics of research, class? Alright, let's move on to the nature of inquiry and research. We know that acquisition of knowledge is the goal of education. Speaking of which, class, education is not just procuring knowledge in your brain, but it encourages us for a deeper comprehension of our surroundings. With that being said, studying further about an instance inspires us to construct or produce developments for the improvement of the world. Sounds fun, right? So, let me read to you the definition of inquiry. Inquiry is the learning process that motivates you to obtain knowledge or information about people, things, places, or events. But how is this possible? Inquiry is a term that is synonymous with the word investigation. And that is the answer to this question. When you acquire or investigate, you tend to ask questions to probe or examine something. You do this kind of examination through your thoughts or your higher order thinking strategies of inferential, analytical, critical, creativity, and appreciative thinking to discover more understandable or meaningful things beyond such object of your inquiry. Thinking in this manner makes you ask open-ended questions to elicit views, opinions, and beliefs of others in relation to your research. For example, number 1, a person wants to know the occupant of one condominium. We can comprehend that the goal of it is just to know the occupant of one condominium, whereas in example number 2, it says there, a student wants to know the medicinal effects of guava leaves. For the student to know the medicinal effects of guava leaves, we know that he has to follow a process of investigation that utilizes a standardized approach in knowing such effect. Thus, we can see that research includes more complex acts of investigation than the former. Questions? Alright, let's move on to the methods of research. We have two methods. First off, deductive method. This is from general ideas to specific ideas. Second, inductive method. It is from specific ideas to general ideas. Class, to be a researcher is to be a scientist who must think logically or systematically. Remember that your research activities must follow a certain order, like doing inductive thinking, that makes you ponder on specific ideas first, then move to more complex concepts like conclusions or generalizations. Or you may do the opposite of inductive thinking, which is the deductive thinking, that lets you start from forming generalizations to examining details about the subject matter. Remember that these are not the only approaches though that you can adhere to in planning your research work. Depending on your topic and purpose, you are free to choose from several approaches, methods, and types of research you have learned. Deductive method also deals from more general to more specific ideas. It is also called the top-down approach. Alright, we can see there an illustration that is under deductive method. We can see that it starts from thinking up a theory about the subject of interest, then narrowing it down into a particular hypothesis to be tested, then narrowing it down into observation to adjust the hypothesis. This leads us to be able to assess the hypothesis with specific data or the confirmation or not of our original theories. Clear class? Alright. Let's move on to inductive method. This deals from specific observations to broader generalizations and theories. This is sometimes called a bottom-up approach. In this method, we begin with specific observations and measures. We begin also to detect patterns and regularities. Then after that, we formulate tentative hypotheses to be explored and end up developing general conclusions or theories. Alright? Questions? Let us move on. Alright, embedding science in research sounds fun, isn't it? Things are about to get fun, students. If you are curious and skeptical about current phenomena, you are heading towards a better science exploration. You read books, browse the web, or ask questions. Then you put together all these pieces of information to clear your idea, or probably to add more ideas. Wow! This research process is informal, as it does not follow procedures strictly and relies more on casual observation. This study method is informal, as it does not follow protocols strictly and relies more on casual observation and opinions. Moreover, even though the research has provided answers to concerns, the findings of this research process are more prone to skepticism. Remember, research is rooted in its method to ensure work is more reliable and beneficial. Let us define first science. According to Canning 2016 and Espinosa 2016, science is conceptualized as a procedural and systematic approach in gaining new knowledge by making thorough observation and using controlled and precise methods. Hence, knowledge gained from science is not based on subjective or personal views. It rather comes from objective or tangible pieces of evidence which come from a meticulously designed research study. In this regard, a research done scientifically is more accurate, reliable, and valid. Moving on to the scientific method in research, we have empirical approach. Knowledge is acquired via direct observation and experimentation. Also, certain data from experimental experiments are considered credible. You thus ignore your preconceived notion of an understudy of the construct, meaning to say, it is ideal for you to disregard your thoughts and views on the results of your research. Clear, class? Second scientific method in research is the observation. It is your understanding of the world that makes up your ideas. Yet if you rely exclusively on your consciousness, this results in knowledge bias, lowering the validity of your findings. Class, remember, in order for you to improve the veracity of the information you obtain from observation, you must use an accurate instrument to properly calculate this. For example, if you want to find out how far car A is from car B, you do not rely on your estimate of distance that merely comes from your vision. Instead, you should use a measuring instrument, I repeat, a measuring instrument to measure the distance between the two cars to yield precise data. Alright? Next, question. Understanding comes from attentive inquiries. Questions must be answered through scientific research and concrete proof has to be generated. A problem is answerable when practical discovery is considered unlikely, class, no matter how fascinating that may be. For example, what is the butterfly's level of well-being as it eats nectar from a flower? Despite the fact that it can really result in a breakthrough, the preceding inquiry is unfeasible to be studied given the present state of science. Therefore, a question that yields knowledgeable information must have an obtainable answer based on the current scientific procedures available. Next example. Is there an increase in test scores among students when they attended a tutorial class? The foregoing inquiry could definitely be investigated using available scientific methods because it is realistically measurable and concrete pieces of evidences are produced. Alright, let's move on to hypothesis. Hypothesis is an educated guess with an attempt to explain a phenomenon. It should help you formulate a prediction. Therefore, it must be testable for analysis and interpretation. For example, there is a significant increase of voters when registration is duly advertised. This hypothesis can be tried through an experiment, and the result that comes from it guarantees scientific foundation. Let's discuss about null versus alternative hypothesis. These two are two mutually exclusive statements about the population. A hypothesis test uses sample data to determine whether to reject the null hypothesis. Null hypothesis states that a population parameter such as the mean, the standard deviation, and so on is equal to a hypothesized value. The null hypothesis is often an initial claim that is based on a previous analysis or specialized knowledge, whereas alternative hypothesis states that a population parameter is smaller, greater, or different than the hypothesized value in the null hypothesis. The alternative hypothesis is what you might believe to be true or hope to be true or to prove true. For example, or specifically, in alternative hypothesis, the application of biofertilizer increases plant growth, whereas in null hypothesis, the application of biofertilizer do not increase plant growth. It says there that alternative hypothesis is a hypothesis which the researcher tries to prove. On the other hand, null hypothesis is a hypothesis which the researcher tries to disprove or nullify. Clear? Alright, great. Since the process itself is a scientific proof of processes, and so the results are considered valid, we can see here that experiments, these are the processes that you will do in getting accurate and reliable results of your hypothesis. The process itself, as I have mentioned earlier, is a scientific proof of processes. Next is the analysis. Use of statistical methods to arrive at reliable findings. The statistical treatment to be used depends on the study design, the data type, and given queries. Because the use of statistics reduces the probability of making flawed assumptions about the investigative object. Next is the conclusion. This is the inferencing process that involves concrete data to rule out views. A finding usually has to be logical and backed by rigorous data analysis. Just a tape class. You should avoid adding more to what is literally available in your conclusion. Remember that. Next is the replication. This means, once again, doing the same analysis to a different group of participants to check the soundness of the result obtained. It is because the significance and prevalence of research on replication differs greatly from discipline to research field. More so, the several time conduct of the study will pave the way for additional and essential purposes. So these are the purposes of replication. Establishment of reliability of findings. The previous data which have been confirmed would have a stronger element of confidence. Next is discovery of new knowledge. Quite frequently, replication produces additional information or entirely new data that will improve your knowledge gain, and if any, it makes your uncertainty clearer. Next is ascertainment of the generalizability of results. This means that the study findings can be extended to a certain groups of participants and are not limited to the original samples only. Alright? Any questions about the previous discussed concepts? Let us move on to the goals of research. The objectives of the scientific research are as follows. First is to describe. This applies to the description and classification of the phenomenon being studied. The definition purpose is to include the critical detail in every data. Next, predict. This includes specifying the possible implications of current events based on established awareness of something else. It is aimed at controlling one's action and behavior through careful planning derived from a set of information. Next, to understand and explain. It is a method by which knowledge is processed to figure out the reasons behind phenomena. A relationship between events must already be identified in order to interpret and clarify data. One should trigger the impact to the other, and other causality explications between them must be omitted. Alright? Let's move on to the importance of research. We know that research plays an important part in a society's growth. Hence, it is just relevant for the following reasons. First one, knowledge is built up. Second, it corrects expectations. And third, they confirm phenomena. Fourth, current approaches are being tested for effectiveness. And fifth, problems are solved. In conclusion, research is vital in the society as it sheds light on confusing facts and phenomena. Is everything clear so far, class? Do you have any questions? That's great. I hope you have learned the basic concepts in research, as it would all be of good help as you journey through practical research too. If you have questions, class, do not hesitate to ask your teacher in practical research too. Thank you for listening, and thank you for joining today's class. Goodbye, class. Goodbye, students, and see you next meeting. God bless.
Happy learning at home with lessons made easy by Olivarian GoTeach. One proud Olivarian.